Hello everyone, I'm Karen Holmes Ward. Welcome to CITYLINE. Black History Month is a time to celebrate the achievements and struggles of African Americans throughout the years. For Northeastern University's School of Law, their Civil Rights and Restorative Justice project is part of this effort to not only keep history alive, but help right wrongs of the past. Take a look at the documentary, The Trouble I've Seen. Rebecca Miller, director, editor, designer, and writer of The Trouble I've Seen, joins us today. She's also a WCVB alum. Welcome back, Rebecca.
Nice to see you again.
Well, you have to catch us up. Tell us about the Civil Rights Restorative Justice project at Northeastern's School of Law and how you became involved.
Well, it's really a wonderful thing. Professor Margaret Burnham runs the Civil Rights Restorative Justice Clinic, and it runs like a law firm, and the students get a cold case from the pre-civil rights era. And they asked me to come in and make a documentary for an event that was going to be shown at an event for Martin Luther King with Toni Morrison. And I was given 3 cold cases that had been researched by the students. And so I created a program that includes 3 cases of race-based murder. The Della McDuffie case, which you saw a clip from, which is from Alabama. The Malcolm Wright case in Mississippi, and also the John Earl Reese case from East Texas. And I created a program with the families of the victims and also with the students. And the students really do an incredible job. They have gone down to these towns and worked with the families. They've worked with the NAACP and the Justice Department finding these documents.
Now tell us the definition of restorative justice.
Well, restorative justice can happen in many ways. It can be financial remuneration. It can be communities coming together to recognize the wrongs of the past. And the students have done all sorts of interesting things. They've done things like had street signs put up with the names of the victims. They've had civil rights markers put up. They've collected the history and put it in the school library. They've developing curriculums about it. And Margaret Burnham, who runs the Civil Rights and Restorative Justice Clinic, she had a landmark settlement 2 years ago in Mississippi with a case of Dee and Moore, in which she actually got financial remuneration for...
And, of course, restorative justice, not to be confused with reparations, which is a totally different thing, a little bit of crossover, but certainly not the same thing.
Well, it's all part of seeking justice in one way or another. I mean, and remunerations is part of that, and sometimes it's simply a matter of the community coming together.
Tell us about some of the interviews that you did with the families for these films. Certainly, there must have been a lot of emotion and just a history of bad feelings around some of these cases for these people that you talked to.
It was very interesting to meet these people. We met, you know, the family members are aging, and these stories are getting lost, as well as the documents that relate to these cases. But I met with 92-year-old Columbus Wright, and I took him out to the spot where his cousin had been pulled off of a mule-drawn wagon and murdered. And we talked right there at the spot. It's very sad. Also, I met with Joyce Nelson, who was dancing with her cousin during a drive-by shooting, and her cousin was shot and died on the spot right in front of her. And also the sons and daughters of Della McDuffie. And these are very sad stories, and it's not just the stories of one person that has died. These are really families who have gone through these terrible stories, and in many cases, these stories have been buried in shame in families, or these stories have lived as legends. But
and of course, we're talking about restorative justice, bringing justice back to these people who experienced this. During the mid-20th century, how common was it to cover up the crimes and or to protect the people that committed these crimes against these people?
The fear and intimidation for the black community in the Deep South in the 40s and 50s these people lived in fear. And so it was not just the murders that took place. It was also the fear and intimidation that surrounded these families. In the case of Della McDuffie, we saw the clip. Her husband was murdered. About a year later, they wanted an investigation, and they tried, and the city officials covered it up. And the family was then banished and was forced to leave town. And this happened many times. People were forced to leave town if they went and sought justice. Many of these cases never went to court. If they did go to court, there was an all-white jury that acquitted the perpetrators. The perpetrators walked free. And so, you know, these wrongs of the past have been living in these communities and these families for all these years.
Now, the film that you finished, you were able to edit it down to 17 minutes. How did you do that?
Well, you know, it's my job to be a storyteller, and I am a producer that really believes in hustling a program along and keeping people engaged. And so I created music using I created Delta Blues, over 100 cuts of Delta Blues, using a group out of the University of Mississippi on guitar and harmonica, and another group out of the Berklee College of Music, Thaddeus Hogarth. It's
a beautiful piece of work. What was the biggest reward that you received out of this, Rebecca?
Well, Toni Morrison told me that she loved it.
Oh my goodness.
And so one of the nice things about it is that the stories in the film are very close to the stories in her latest book, Home. And so, you know, it was very nice of her to say that, and I met her at this event.
Rebecca, thanks for coming back today to talk about your production company, Optik Nerve, and to catch us up on what you've been doing.
I appreciate it.
All right, everybody. Learn more about Optik Nerve and Northeastern's Civil Rights and Restorative Justice Project by logging on to our page, WCVB.com. Up next,